Mornings, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and thank you for Frank for teeing up my presentation so nicely. I actually just wanted to jump on stage and just get into a conversation on them, because that would have made much more entertaining engagement than the presentation you're about to receive today. In short, what I want to talk to you about today is kind of touching on a lot of what Frank said in his last presentation. There were many aspects of that which talked about, what's coming, younger consumers, new forms of technology. I go to a lot of presentations where it's what's next. I think the reality is a lot of these things are happening today. And as rights holders and media businesses, it's really important that you address them today. Tomorrow seems like a long way away, but the technology is already there. It's already creating huge opportunities for rights holders and media businesses. Now, in the short time that I have this morning, I just want to give you guys a top-level overview about Facebook and Facebook Sport, and talk about two questions which I get quite a lot when I'm speaking to media business and rights holders. How do I increase my reach? How do I get through to the biggest audience? And secondly, how do I keep them for longer? Now, there's lots and lots of trends that are going about. I've managed to aggregate some data across 20 or so of the top rights publishers across Europe to kind of give you an overview. And hopefully there's a couple of nuggets that you can take away with you today. So let's start with our mission statement as an organization. Facebook itself is about giving people the power to share and make the world more open and connected. We're not just one organization, Facebook Inc. We have a number of properties. You can see them on the screen today. On Facebook, we have just over 1.9 billion users active on the platform. Instagram, 700 million. WhatsApp, 1 billion. And also on, let's not forget, Facebook Messenger. Lots and lots of services which touch people and engage and allow people to do what our mission is to do, is give them the opportunity to share and connect. When it comes to sport, my job in itself is actually to work with pretty much most of the sports ecosystem. So I will work with rights holders, broadcasters, players, leagues, and athletes to effectively turn their media and their commercial strategies into really strong executions across our platforms. And I'm not forgetting the other end as well. We work very, very closely to understand consumer behaviors in each market on how they're engaging with these sports properties. And we share that feedback with our development team to tweak the platform to make better customer experiences. So effectively, from a two pronged attack, we're working very closely with the sports industry to connect them with those fans and make sure they're getting the best out of our platform. And from a fan's perspective, we're understanding all those little nuances in terms of data connections, how they're interacting with the platform, and how they're interacting with the publisher. So combined, bringing those two together to make sure that sport uses its power to help the publishers get through to their consumers. And it's not just the day-to-day relationships that we're seeing fans engage with us on our platform. It's the active conversation they're having around these events. So when you think of Facebook, you traditionally think of the place where people will go and connect and share and have conversations with their family and friends and get the latest information from their athletes and teams and leagues and broadcasters. But it's actually beyond that. As you can see from the figures up here today, when it comes to major sporting events, Facebook and Instagram is the place where the conversation is happening. Whether it's with the NBA Finals, delivering moments that capture emotion that you would never ever get before directly to those fans, or across everything from the European Championships to the Olympics. The platform is helping rights holders and media businesses get their message and content through to their audience to develop a longer relationship with them. So what type of organization is Facebook? I mean, it's made many transitions over the years, but one thing is apparent. We went from being a very strict mobile organization to now being a mobile video organization. Our platforms and everything that we develop in terms of our surfaces are developing for that. So whether it's the camera-facing approach that we've recently released to Facebook, or it's the way that the new media techniques that we've developed so that you can have various experience of video, whether that's live, VOD, 360, or even on Instagram point of view, boomerangs. Now this is the gold, really. I think whenever we're speaking to media partners, it's newsfeed. It's the thing that everyone in this room who's on Facebook connects with. It's the thing you open in the morning. It's the thing you close before you go to sleep. On average, we're seeing people open Facebook and engage with it around about between 10 to 12 times a day. So that's on average. So that's about taking the extremes. And without sort of sharing in the numbers, I can assure you that sports fans are much more deeper when it comes to engaging with the platform to get the latest and greatest from their fans. So newsfeed is a phenomenon, in fact, the amount of time in which is consumed on the platform, but it's also a fantastic concept when you think about the way in which video is, created and shared. And one of the statistics up here I want to draw your attention to is 48% of videos watch time comes from shares. So when you start to think about that, that really does resonate with rights holders and publishers. If you want really, really good content to get its exposure, it has to resonate with its audience. And newsfeed has pretty much been king to that. And to date, everyone's jumped on board with it. We've seen some fantastic executions, whether it's short-form content giving you a summary of the highlights from an event, or it's people taking it to the next level, like this NBA press conference, which is filmed in Live 360. You know, the sports industry and the sports media landscape really do jump on board all of our assets. And to date, they've really, really maximized them to help them cut through newsfeed and engage with their fan base. So what does tomorrow look like? You know, at F8 this year, we released a couple of developments. So for those out there that are not aware, F8 is our developer conference. We talked heavily about video, and most prominently about Video Tab. So Video Tab is the surface on my far right here. This is a very unique area where someone can go in and effectively get a very curated and different experience of video. So if we go back to newsfeed, you're looking at a platform where people would check in, you know, their 10 to 12 times a day. They would check on their family videos. They would probably check a cat video or get their latest recipe from Tasty. This is the area where you're going to be able to go in there and get that curated video experience. So spending longer time on this platform, enjoying content beyond the snackable versions that we're all familiar with. And we've also got connected television. So again, Frank talked about that lean back experience being very, very important. And we still do see that. Regardless of age, you know, we know that sport and sports broadcasting is very social. So the need to be able to lean back and enjoy that with a beer with your friends is vital. And we see that as part of our developments going forward. And actually looking further into the future, social VR. So the ability for you to actually put yourself in a room with your friend who may be on the other side of the country, spin up a screen virtually of that sport and replicate that environment that you get when you're in a pub with your friends or in front of the television in a living room, which you can't do through traditional media. So when I sit down and talk with many of our partners, whether that be a BT, a Sky, Premier League, La Liga, the question they have is, how do we get through to the biggest possible audience? So one of the critical pieces which we touched on was newsfeed, and getting through to newsfeed is becoming harder and harder each day. It's a very competitive landscape. You have to remember that, as in Frank's presentation, you had a number of new media products that are developing, and everyone is fighting for that attention. Everyone wants to be in your newsfeed when you open it for that, you know, that 10th time in a day. It's how do you make sure that when you are publishing, you get through that. So here's a few tips in terms of what I recommend to you guys, your publishers and rights holders, and how you can get through to that audience. So there's four key principles really: post, mix, and frequency, and I'll come on to that shortly. So we are a video first platform, and that is extremely important. What we do notice is that out of all of our mediums, video is the one that consumers respond the most to. Video is king, still is king, as Frank had in his slide. I believe that is true. Content is king, and video is the format that does that. And invest in the ecosystem. So this isn't a one-off activity. If you are a league or you're a broadcaster, think about utilizing all of the assets you have around you. We have a solution out today called cross-posting that allows you to take a video from your page and share it across multiple pages, retaining all the equity. So effectively syndicating that across these huge communities that people have invested in building up. And measure, track, and adjust appropriately. I was having breakfast with a friend of mine who works for a major broadcaster, and we were just talking about how they analyze programming. You know, how long they have to wait before they can actually make decisions, how long they have to wait before they can change their EPG or programming blocks. Facebook gives you that luxury. There is so much data behind the platform that you can start to make decisions that not only impact the way you publish on platform, but also the way you publish direct to consumer via a broadcast product. So let's look at that post mix. Slide above shows you a graph with 5 publishers that have been anonymized. The blue line represents their page size, which traditionally has always been that metric. You know, I have 100 million followers, I have 50 million followers. That defines how big my reach is. The second chart represents reach, so how far that content is reaching. Now, the first thing to recognize here is that content reaches beyond your page. So we talked about earlier in the newsfeed part of the presentation about 53% of views coming from shares. So when you're thinking about how you get that content out there, it is way beyond your page size. If you do it correctly, it can go beyond that and proliferate to new audiences. So what drives this? The key differentiator here is video. You can have a posting strategy which consists a lot of links back to your platform, photos, text, but the one piece that really does drive engagement is video. So as publishers out there, the more video you can do in your publishing mix, the higher propensity you have to get through to your audience and beyond that to new consumers. The second is post frequency. So how many times are you posting a day? It's a silly question, but whenever I sit down and talk to someone, they say, how many times should I post a day? And the truth is you can't post enough. You know, you've got to remember that person is opening their phone on a number of occasions in a day, and I only gave you that average. There's more aggressive people that are consuming our platform, and there's more publishers out there. So it's becoming more competitive than ever. So being able to cut through there, ensuring that you have a very smart posting strategy that makes sure that when that fan opens their phone, the content they see is from you. And that content, the type of content is really, really important as well. Again, I know talking about Frank's presentation that the thing that we get very much that resides with people is that authentic content. And this isn't just necessarily for Facebook, it's also for Instagram. You know, anything that's front-facing. You know, what's clear is that the technology development has almost democratized sport, where you had to wait for that player interview to happen. You had to go through different layers of that organization to get through to that talent and content. Nowadays, you're seeing athletes themselves becoming media businesses. So the chance for them to publish directly to the consumer is giving that consumer exactly what they want. And it's also important to make sure that it's shareable. So again, when we're looking at that point in terms of authentic, it's got to be viral. So 2 questions you should ask yourself is, would you watch it and would you share it? So in conclusion, when it comes to actually cutting through newsfeed, the key things you should be remembering is video first. Make sure you have a strong video mix. Make sure you have a very good cadence of frequency, and that has to suit you as an organization. And again, make sure that content is authentic and has a message inside it which gives someone the opportunity and makes them and compels them to share. So the next point I want to talk about is driving deeper engagement. So yes, you've managed to get your content out there, but how do you make sure that when you have that attention, they are spending longer with you? Now, we touched on earlier the fact that Facebook has Newsfeed, which is this platform which creates these really nice sessions for everybody, whether you're at the breakfast table, you're waiting for a train, on a train, you can flip into Facebook and multitask into the next platform and get your hit. In January this year, we made a tweak to our algorithm that changed the way that rewarded content in Newsfeed. Traditionally, it was about time spent. So if you had a 30-second video and you spent 50% of the time on that video, Newsfeed would recognize that and rank that accordingly. But that's only 15 seconds. What it doesn't account for is the quality and the content that's there. So the change that was made was not just to keep that consideration, but also think about time spent. So you could have someone who would spend 50% of the time on a 30-second clip, which will give you one metric, but you could have someone who might spend 10 minutes on a 30-minute clip. And these are other triggers that until January weren't really taken into consideration. So what you will see now and more when you guys execute on Newsfeed is more long-form video surfacing. Now this is to address the customer need, but also the development of our new surfaces. the connected TV and video tab, making sure that that content that people are engaging with is surfacing and getting through to the right audience. Now, just to kind of give you a snapshot of how that's performing at the moment, I've done a bit of analysis here across 3 months. The green bars represent average video lengths, and if you can see in December and January, it grows to February. The red bar represents numbers of videos published. So as you can see, it declines in February. On this slide here, we're seeing average video reach. So the blue line is showing that audience is getting through to. So as I touched on earlier, that getting through to that audience is really, really important. Now, traditionally, it was Facebook is the place for small clips, little bite-sized ones that we put in there. But now we're seeing that the partners that are starting to adapt to the platform and understand those changes are actually benefiting from them. So we do see that long-form video and those changes are reflecting in the way that sport content is being consumed and the audience that it's getting through to. But it's not just the reach. What we're seeing is the viewership. So the amount of time that people are spending on it. As you can see here, you've got the average video length, again, number of videos, but what we see is total videos viewed. So for those longer form videos, there's an appetite for it. It's not just a one-off. People are consuming more of those. So that need and want to actually spend time on longer form content is existing within our ecosystem, and we're seeing it prominently today. And the other thing is interactions. So interactions are key triggers when it comes to promoting content within our newsfeed. And interactions demonstrate another factor as well, that your content is driving conversation. People want to engage with it. And what we're seeing here is the long-form video, again, is driving deeper interactions into our platform. So almost thinking about the way that our platform is today, with short-form snackable content, as publishers out there, whether you're a rights holder or a media broadcaster, you need to be thinking about how you're developing content that's engaging the audience within its current surfaces for the new surfaces of tomorrow. So I just want to conclude on a few key takeaways here. Video is king, so if you're a publisher or a rights holder, a video-first strategy is very key to you getting through to your audience. Good content is good content. I always put this in here, whether it's 30 seconds or whether it's 10 minutes. Good content is good content. There's a number of metrics in there that can tell you how they're engaging, but the prominent metrics is it good enough? And you should look at metrics like share rate. So the ability of people who have opened and viewed that content over their need and want to share it. That's always a good metric for defining whether or not it's good or not. Newsfeed rewards time spent on video as well as percentage complete. So that's, as I touched on earlier, the traditional mindset of newsfeed just being that place where it's short, clippable videos that appear. We're seeing much more longer form content appear as a change in publishing strategies and as a change of our algorithm. And as I said earlier, invest in a posting frequency that helps you cut through newsfeed. There's an audience out there that is really biting at the bit to engage with your sports, whether it's niche or whether it's mainstream. In order for you to make sure you hit that audience, it's really important that you have a very competitive publishing strategy on newsfeed. Thank you.